Sometimes a story starts with something as straightforward as a natural disaster, but it ends up revealing these silent, invisible wars of perception that are happening all around us. So today, we're going to unpack a fascinating case study that begins with a cyclone, but quickly spirals into a full-blown diplomatic battle. It's all about this idea that it's not just about doing good anymore, but about being seen doing good.
So let's set the scene. Our story begins with a real tragedy. A powerful cyclone has just ripped through South Asia, causing absolutely devastating floods, especially in Sri Lanka. And in moments like these, the world watches, expecting the international community to step up and help.
And at first, that's exactly what seemed to be happening. Pakistan announced it was getting aid ready to send to its struggling neighbor. But then, this offer of help, it came with a really sharp, unexpected twist, a direct accusation aimed right at India.
The claim was frankly explosive. Pakistan was saying, hey, we're ready to help. Our C-130 transport planes are loaded up, but we can't get to Sri Lanka. And the reason, they alleged India had completely blocked its airspace to them. Now look, this wasn't just some logistical problem. This was a very public accusation, basically painting India as the villain, as an obstacle to critical humanitarian relief.
And just like that, the stage was set for this classic diplomatic standoff. You've got a full-blown he-said, she-said scenario playing out on the global stage, all while a nation is in desperate need of help.
So on one side, you have Pakistan's very loud claim of a blocked humanitarian flight. But on the other, India came back with an immediate and really firm denial. Indian officials said the claim was totally baseless and that actually they had already given permission. And they made a key point: humanitarian aid flights are never blocked. That's just a fundamental principle.
Okay, so this is where the story gets really interesting. The focus suddenly shifts from these big accusations to the small details, to the evidence, and it's those details that start to tell a very, very different story.
So, to push back against India's denial, Pakistan's ambassador to Sri Lanka went on social media. The message was all about solidarity. Pakistan stands with Sri Lanka. And it came with a photo, which was meant to be the proof of their goodwill and the aid they were getting ready to send.
But here's the thing. They provided their own evidence, and that very evidence would be the thing to unravel their entire narrative. It practically begs you to lean in and take a closer look.
Because when you zoom in on that photo right on the food supply package itself, you can see the label. And guess what? The supplies, the supposed aid for these flood victims, was expired. That one single detail completely changes the context, right? It suggested this whole thing wasn't really about substantive aid, but about putting on a show.
And this whole incident, it's the perfect example of a much bigger conflict, one that doesn't happen on battlefields with tanks and soldiers, but in headlines, in tweets, and on social media. Welcome to the war of narratives.
Which, of course, leads to the obvious question. Why? Why go through all this trouble creating an international incident all over what turned out to be a pretty small shipment of expired food? Well, the answer is all about strategy. This is a textbook example of what experts call narrative warfare. It's a modern type of conflict where victory isn't measured by territory gained, but by public perception won. The goal isn't to win a physical fight, but to control the story, to shape how the world understands what's happening.
And this whole situation really shines a light on a huge challenge in geopolitics today. In our hyper-connected world, just doing good things often isn't enough. You have to be seen doing them, and crucially, you have to control how that story gets told.
So while all this drama was unfolding online, what was India actually doing on the ground? Well, they were sending aid, a lot of it. We're talking 53 tons of high-quality relief materials, including things that were desperately needed, like medicines and tents. I mean, the contrast here is just wow, it's so stark. On one side, you have this symbolic, very public gesture that involved expired food, and on the other, a massive, substantive delivery of actual, useful aid. And yet, which story grabbed the initial headlines? And this is where you start to see a really critical vulnerability. See, analysis shows that even though India provides a ton of aid to its neighbors, we're talking Bangladesh, Nepal, Sri Lanka, for years, anti-India narratives often get powerful traction online in those exact same countries. There's this huge disconnect between what India does and how it's perceived. And this quote from a diplomatic analysis just hits the nail on the head. It says, "The challenge for India isn't a lack of resources or even a lack of will. It's a severe deficit of execution when it comes to telling its own story on the global stage."
So,
All of this brings us to the final, really crucial question. What does it actually take to win this silent war of perception? And why does managing that perception matter so much in modern diplomacy?
You see, one of the key arguments is that India often gets stuck in this reactive mode, constantly playing a catch-up game. Instead of getting out there and proactively shaping its own narrative, it's frequently forced to spend its energy just debunking false stories after they've already gone viral.
And what that does is create this really damaging cycle. First, an accusation gets thrown out there, and it grabs all the headlines. Then India is forced onto the back foot, issuing denials and providing facts. But by the time the official, truthful response comes out, that initial, more dramatic narrative has already taken hold in people's minds. It's a losing strategy.
So, what's the big takeaway from all of this? Well, first, actions are obviously important, but it's the narrative that truly persuades people. Second, you can't think of global communication as some soft skill anymore. It is a critical diplomatic tool. And maybe most importantly, that old saying that the truth will prevail, well, it's missing a crucial step. The truth has to be told first, and it has to be told effectively.
And that really leaves us with a final, important question to chew on. In our world today, just flooded with information, and let's be honest, misinformation, is it enough for a country to simply tell the truth? Or do they now have a much bigger responsibility to make sure that their truth actually cuts through all that noise and is well and truly heard?